When it comes to watch-related crime, have you ever wondered where the watches that are taken from people actually wind up? Have you ever wondered who's behind these crimes, who's actually funding it, and who's buying watches from the people who are doing the stick-ups and robberies? Well, a recent conviction and story came out that'll help to shed some light on this subject. In what is likely the largest watch crime-related case in the US in the last decade, jeweler Stanislav Yakubov was recently found guilty of money laundering and 2 counts of lying to federal agents for his participation in a string of watch crime and jewelry-related robberies that took place across New York City and New Jersey. Yakubov is a jewelry store owner in the Coliseum Mall, which just so happens to be in my old neighborhood in Jamaica, Queens, New York. A little aside for hip-hop heads from my generation, the Jamaica Coliseum Mall was actually the location for Raekwon and the Wu-Tang Clan's filming of their classic Ice Cream video back in the day. Yakubov was involved in at least 10 robberies, some of which were perpetrated against his own friends, and some of which also involved guns, with one person being shot. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Yakubov agreed to purchase hundreds of thousands of dollars in stolen watches over the course of 2 years. They say the robberies largely took place between the end of 2019 and the end of 2020, with just a slight break during the lockdowns caused by the pandemic. You can actually find accounts listing out all of the robberies online with summaries on what happened in each one. It's pretty wild. On October 3rd, 2019, a Long Island City, New York jeweler was robbed of a Richard Mille watch worth more than $150,000. On October 25th, 2019, a Jamaica, New York jeweler was robbed of a Rolex worth more than $118,000. On December 2019, a Brooklyn, New York jeweler was robbed of a Patek Philippe worth more than $160,000, as well as a diamond necklace valued at over $77,000. And not that the New York cases weren't bad enough, this guy was actually a part of robberies that crossed state lines and went into New Jersey as well. On June 11, 2020, a Hoboken, New Jersey jeweler was robbed of a Richard Mille timepiece valued at more than $81,000. On July 6, 2020, another jeweler in Hoboken was robbed of a Richard Mille watch worth more than $180,000. On August 2, 2020, a food critic and social media influencer was robbed of a Richard Mille watch worth more than $250,000 in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. As for the robbers themselves, only one was mentioned by name, Victor Rivera, who pled guilty for his participation in the crimes, and it was said that he actually shot someone who thankfully survived. He was sentenced to 19 years in prison. Yakubov is facing a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison for his 1 count of money laundering, and then for his 2 counts of lying to federal agents, he's facing an additional 5 years for each charge, and he's scheduled to be sentenced on June 1st. So some of the questions that came to mind for me regarding this case was, 1, why wasn't he charged with conspiracy and robbery like the guys perpetrating the act on the ground? He was actually funding their efforts and taking their stolen goods, even giving them targets in his jeweler friends. So how did he get that slap on the wrist to only be facing those 3 counts? I think this is a clear case where race and class and access to power come into play for him to not have received more harsh charges than he did. 2, I couldn't find a picture of Yakubov online, which was really interesting. So he and his legal team must have worked really hard to do their due diligence, and they must have spent a decent amount of cash to make sure that his face wasn't plastered all across the internet in relation to these charges. And I thought that was particularly interesting because when it comes to a lot of these cases, when we get photos or video of the perpetrators of the crime on the streets, they tend to be Black and brown people, but we never get to see who's actually cutting the checks and handing these people cash for their stolen wares. What do you think about the idea that there are actually jewelers out there that are participating in funding watch crime? Let me know in the comments. Till next time.